crack, Tom and Jack having a crack.
Welcome to Tom and Jack having the crack, first part of the new year, 2023. How you doing, buddy?
Very good, thank you. 2023, here we go, first pod.
I was just about to ask you, like, how have you been? How you doing? But like, you know, we'll save our friendship chat for content chat. So I was Christmas.
Christmas was grand, yeah, it was nice. 10 days, the longest time I've had for a while to do nothing, and I ended up doing pretty much nothing. Like the first night I got home to Ireland, I went out with my brother, who I hadn't seen for 4 years, lives in Australia, and we ended up drinking whiskey till 6 in the morning, and then and I was pretty much wiped for the rest of Christmas. Like I kind of had a bit of a cold and didn't really want to do anything, but it's fun Christmas. Like I was at my mother's house, and I had 3 nephews and 1 niece, and you know the Sandy came and everything. Like, so that was all pretty exciting. I had a niece who followed me around every time I was watching telly, stood behind me and asked me, did I know that I was going bald, and did I mind that I was going bald, and was I going to do anything about the fact that I was going bald?
What did you say to her?
God, I just told her I knew, but I didn't mind, and I wasn't going to do anything.
Isn't it weird how little kids hate it when anything changes? I remember my sister, when my dad shaved his mustache off, when she was about like 5, she freaked out.
Don't like change.
She was like, I hate it. She's like, I hate it. You have to go back to the way it was.
Well, I suppose that's like, they say kids are more honest. Like all humans dislike change. I suppose the kids are just very, they don't know not to say it.
Yeah, because was she upset for you, or was she like, I just don't like it?
No, it's hard to say. Hard to say. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like I feel like it was just more an observation to her. Do you know what I mean? Like, but she brought it up a few times. You know, it wasn't a one-off. And then I have a 5-year-old nephew who's football mad. He thinks he's Kylian Mbappe.
Yeah.
And he got playing football with him. Playing football with him, that was good fun. Like, but he's a complete cheater. Kicking you, and so yeah, it was fine. It was kind of nice. It was like genuinely felt relaxed, which I'd say is first time for a while where I actually felt pretty chilled. Like,
yeah,
you know.
I know what you mean. I had very similar. Like I think I did my last gig like a few days before Christmas, and then didn't know. I mean, I cooked. I cooked for everyone on Christmas Day.
Oh, did you? You did the cooking?
Yeah. Well, the way my mum likes to, when you've met my mum, the way she doesn't want to give up the reins of the whole thing. So what usually happens is I do the turkey and a couple of the other big bits, and then she'll make the stuffing and do the mashed potatoes and stuff. But it was fun. We did so it's not weird internet content is. So we're confying the turkey legs, which basically means you cut them off the bird and you cook them in fat for like 5 hours,
right? And
you heat them up right at the last minute. It's so that you can cook the breast quickly so it doesn't go dry.
Okay.
And grind it and everything, and thought, I'll film this because it's quite fun, like quite an involved process.
I saw you do a little kind of Instagram.
Yeah. And because I did that, and I did I made some like beef shin stew or something. And it was like one of the best videos I've ever put up. It was
like views.
Yeah.
What did you get?
It was like 15,000 or something, 15,000 views in a couple of days.
Well, like, you know, how many TV shows on telly are about food? Like,
it was
universal topic.
100%. Because I mean, I'm sure like this is like #1 topic for all comedians all the time now. Like, you think, oh, this is a really crafted, well done bit. It's a funny sketch, you know, and it gets like, and then you just film yourself in your mum's kitchen whacking some beef in a pan.
Yeah, and do you know what? I would just say keep doing food videos till they stop working,
Yeah.
because like we both have experience of flyering, and we both have experience of putting up clips that you've paid money to do, like 15,000-80,000 eyes on you. Well, you're the ad man. Like, it's just
Yeah.
free publicity, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, exactly. And it made me feel nice because I really enjoy cooking, and I also enjoy attention. So it's like a nice little.
It's quite funny. I just imagine you now, like, a sold out theater, and like when they interview people when they come out of a show, and they're like, "What do you think of the show?" And they were like, "Thought it was good. Love his cooking though. He does a great beef recipe."
Yeah, I was sort of waiting for.
So that was what won me over. So I decided to come. But it's weird, like, because remember we had in Edinburgh, we had 4 people. I did a political panel show.
Yeah.
About politics, and 4 people came to the comedy show, and they said, like, it's because they like you. So it's weird, like, whatever works.
Yeah, and like you say, just keep popping them up till they stop working. Yeah.
I actually did a one of those political Brexit videos the other day. Like, I had stopped doing them. I was doing them religiously during lockdown, and I stopped doing them. And now every time I see one that I think I'm going to make work, I'm going to do, because like I did one yesterday at work. Like, it takes 2 minutes, 10,000 views.
Yeah.
And so it's just, I don't get anything like that with jokes.
Yeah.
But my main goal for this year is putting up as much content as possible. That's the main goal. I think last year my goal was nailing a club 20, and in hindsight, looking back, I think I had to put a lot of energy into that. I didn't really want any kind of distractions, but now I feel pretty comfortable doing a club 20.
You should do. Yeah, definitely.
It doesn't frighten me.
Yeah.
It doesn't frighten me. So this year is all about content. So that's gas. Like, how long was the video?
Like a minute.
And what? So you just? But did it show the whole?
Yeah, I just sort of narrated myself cooking, doing little bits, trying to have a bit of crack while I was doing it.
But how much footage did you film? Just the beginning and the end. You could just do the beginning and the end.
You could do, yeah. I think I probably filmed maybe 4 minutes of footage. Because you're only I didn't film myself like chopping everything. I was like, I've chopped the carrot, I've done this, here's the puppy, mum's being crazy, and you just compressed it into like a minute.
But did you do what it looked like at the start and what it looked like at the end?
Yes, but the end shot was not as good as it should have been. But that was as soon as I posted it, I was like, needed to spend. But you feel like a dick because I was actually cooking dinner for everyone, so I didn't want to like wait, whoa, you just stop there, hungry. While I'm trying to get out.
There's a lot of things you can play around with, because you can do that. This is my first drink, this is my last drink shot. So you have the first at the end.
Yeah.
And then you could do the chopping and then just have it speed it up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they look so cool. There's a guy on Instagram I love called Notorious Foodie, and that's his whole thing. He sets everyone to classical music, and they're all less than a minute. But it's like he's really smart about those little effects, and like when to bring in like the sound of like wine splashing in a pan and all that. Yeah, they look really cool.
It's kind of when you see stuff like that, you realize that there's an awful lot of scope in social media that I think that hasn't really fully been exploited. Like, there's a lot of things that could work that haven't really been done. There's one guy I keep seeing now, and man, I think it's the bizarrest thing. Like, he's got hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of followers. He does little videos where he basically gets dressed. Right? He says, "So I'm going to this event. This is what
I've seen him.
Have you seen him?
He's great.
Have you ever read the book American Psycho? Like, this is American Psycho. This is the book. Pants, belt, shirt, watch. Like, it's American Psycho, and everyone's just watching it, clicking it. Like, that's the book. That's the book. That's the guy. Like, he, I hope the social media works out for him. He's a killer. He's a stone cold killer. Like, that it's narcissism by a like it's so narcissistic it couldn't have got on telly. Do you know what I mean? People are like, it's fucking amazing.
That's a funny angle about social media in general. It's the stuff that 20 years ago TV producer would be like, that no one's gonna watch you do that for.
Yeah. I'm just gonna get dread, like tell people about my style and dread, you know. Oh yeah. It's a different level of it's quite interesting because the other kind of bizarre thing about social media is like, I think we definitely live in a time where people call up people's behavior way more than they did in the past. You know what I mean? Like people like, we don't want you behaving like this, you don't want you behaving like that, don't behave like that. But paradoxically, at the exact same time, where we've created this thing that it gives us a way of giving loads of positive feedback to narcissists and people with personality disorder, and you know, probably a lot of the people who are behaving in the way that we're telling people not to behave, like we're we're giving them confidence.
Yeah. Oh,
you know, like, and positive feedback, while also having the conversations that nobody should behave. You know, when people behave in X, Y, and Z. You know.
Yeah, because I think like the healthy, you have to be able to separate them. I think because it's funny actually. I did a small gig last night, and there was a couple of comics on there who, you know, some of them had like self-admitted behavioral problems. You know, like I've got autism, I've got this, so you know, things they were working with. And then there was some people who were just a bit of an odd, a little bit odd ducks. And I was thinking like exactly what you just said there. It's like this is probably the one medium where that's rewarded. Like, because
well, I used to always say this about comedy because I grew up in politics. Politics is basically where you identify one part of yourself that is appealing and positive, and you accentuate that, and you create the illusion that you are that person all the time, right? And I always thought that comedy is the opposite. Comedy is where you find the worst part of yourself and you blow it up and you pretend you are that all the time. Like, so the comedian will pretend to be like completely useless, disorganized, crazy, mad, but nobody is that one-dimensional. Do you know what I mean? But that's the comedian's job, is to be the opposite. Well, it's interesting too, because I suppose well, it is and it isn't slightly changing. It has slightly changed a little bit, where you like we used to always have comedians as being sort of badly behaved. You know, they were proud of their dysfunctionality, or they were proud of their crazy views, or they were proud of all that. Whereas now, well, I don't think it has really changed, to be honest with you. I think it's just, you know what I mean? It's still
you just argued yourself around.
Do you know what's so funny? Have you seen that Bill Cosby said he's going to go on tour?
Yes.
Like, obviously, no one's told him about cancel culture. Like, I can't. But the look on his face when he rings up a theater and they're like, "No, we're not putting on the show." He'd be like, "What?"
Yeah. Well, I was thinking this. I was thinking like somewhere in America, of all the countries, somebody somewhere has got a mortgage to pay.
They'll put him on.
Somebody, not like
no one's going to go. No one's going to pay to see Bill Cosby. Like,
well, go on. You go.
I'm not surprised Louis C.K. can sell tickets, but fuck me, I'd be surprised Bill Cosby can sell tickets. Like,
so here's the thing: I'll be staggered if you can do like a proper tour in legitimate venues. That would blow my mind. Do I think you can get 1,000 people who hate cancel culture so much and
jeez,
mate, you're talking about a country of 360 million people, 200 million adults. You don't think you can get 1,000 people who believe in QAnon, who want to
and I suppose he probably says he's innocent, so there'll probably be enough people who believe that he's innocent despite all the evidence.
I mean, you're saying people stormed the Capitol, Jack. People went to the Capitol with guns. Like, there'll be 500 people somewhere who are like, yeah, he's our guy.
Yeah, you've turned me. You've convinced me.
So anyway, when are we going? When are we booking it?
I've never listened to his stand-up, but I have heard that it's unbelievable.
Oh yeah,
really good.
Have you watched the Seinfeld documentary Comedian?
No, no.
Oh, mate, you have to get on that. That's on
And maybe you have. Is that the one where like there was this guy who was really overconfident,
yes.
and but he didn't make it, and then like he had a backlash afterwards. That's the one, yeah.
Yeah. Orny Adams is the heel in the
Yeah.
in the story. Yeah. So in that, there's a whole section where Chris Rock is talking to Jerry Seinfeld about how good Bill Cosby is and about how his new hour is killer and he's doing 2 shows a night. And then Jerry Seinfeld goes to meet Bill Cosby and they have this like warm embrace.
Yeah. Well, I think that's where I got that he was very good. I think that's my memory of saying, but I never listened to his hours.
Yeah. No, I've only ever seen the odd clip of like, you know, famous bits, the pulley pants up routine, things like that. But it's because like Chappelle had that take on him, didn't he? That he did so much for Black culture in America, like funded university scholarships, made sure that made sure that Howard University, which is a Black college, donates huge amounts of money to them. Made sure worked with a child psychologist so that the Cosby Show only had positive representations of Black families. And
Cosby Show was amazing. I watched it all the time. I thought it was great.
Yeah, same. Yeah, it was always on in our house. But obviously a monster. But it's fascinating. I just think somebody somewhere in America, it could be like a fucking airport hangar or a disused bowling alley. Like somebody somewhere is going to be like, I need to pay rent, I need to pay a mortgage, and I think I can get 1,000 people into this bowling alley to see Bill Cosby perform.
85 though too. How long has he been in jail? 10 years?
Is it 10 years?
I don't know. No, I'm just.
I was a bit less. Well, I saw somewhere between 5 and 10. But that must, for the victims, that must be because you know the way he's getting out because of like a technicality, like a chain of evidence technicality.
There was something like evidence that was used in a civil case. Yeah.
I mean, that has just got to be like, but I bet for him, like you said, I bet for him, he's like, well, just proves I was innocent the whole time. I was exonerated, and the justice system let me off. Speaking of potential criminals, you see Rishi Sunak's 5-point plan announcement the other day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What do you reckon?
It's just, to be honest, it could be wrong. To me, it's a classic naive political gambit.
Right.
Like reminiscent. Ed Miliband had the 10 things too. Do you remember?
That's what it reminded me of.
Yeah. It's just you're setting yourself.
John Major's common sense agenda, like all those sorts of things.
You're setting yourself up for failure. It seems to be like a very naive political move. Like, say what you want about Boris Johnson, right? But like as someone who's interested in politics, but he was a very shrewd politician. Like he did know how to win votes. He did know how to win people over. Like, so you know the most effective in the last 20 years. You know, you got Blair, Boris, Farage as well. Like they know how to talk to the electorate. And I think setting yourself up, but judge me on these 5 things. I think it's just, I think it's mind-bogglingly stupid. I'm delighted to see it, because he's messing up in a few ways. Because one, he's telling everybody what their 5 priorities is. Nobody likes to be told how they think. So there might be the percentage of people who are going to read that and go, actually, they are my 5 priorities. is going to be small. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think the boat one is niche enough, and I think if you're upset about the boats, you know, I could be wrong now. I don't want to be too judgmental here, but I usually think if you're upset about the boats, you're usually so rich you don't care about inflation, or you're so poor you don't give a fuck about the economy either. You're poor and stupid, or you're rich and you know, racist. So you're either sides of the economy. Do you know what I mean? You're the people who actually the economy. It doesn't really. You're not paying that much attention to the economy because you either have nothing or you have fucking far too much. You know.
Oh, mate, that's exactly what I felt like when. So those first 4 points are kind of like focus groupy. And like you say, even if people agree with them, no one likes to be told that's what they agree with. But they kind of like, you can imagine those 4 things coming out of focus groups, can't you? Like sort of consensus kind of things. and the boat thing just felt like we have to throw our base red meat. We have to give them something.
And it's just like everything about it is wrong. I just think because like one, I just if I was an advisor of his, like I'd never in a million years advise him to do this because one is right. You don't succeed in one of them, right? You've told people don't judge me unfairly if I don't achieve one of these. If you do achieve all of them, right, and you say, look, I achieved all of them, people be like, you don't get to set the parameters in which I judge you by. Do you know what I mean? It's all like it's so he's out of touch. It's childish manipulation. It's the type of thing you would say to a child. Do you know what I mean? Like it's childish manipulation.
Came across like that. I thought it came across incredibly patronizing.
It's patronizing. It's massively patronizing. So it is, and I can't see it working from. And it's like when Ed Miliband had those 10. Like it never works. Do you know what I mean? It's basically it's a case of you're trying to set the narrative and you're trying to set what you should be judged on, but that's not. Oh, I don't. Yeah.
It screams both in the Ed Miliband case and this case. It screams of people who spend their whole life in a Oxford, Cambridge, PPE, SPAD bubble.
Yeah.
And only interact with the public via focus group and via sort of manicured data points and the occasional constituency surgery. And they've forgotten that the thing that Boris Johnson is really good at, Donald Trump's really good at, who's your man? Bernie Sanders is really good at, like understanding how to interpret that through the lens of actual real people and how to communicate something to real people.
And also like keeping your vagues and you're keeping it all vague. Do you know what I mean?
Because if I was a journalist, I'd be like, oh, thanks very much, mate. You've now given me the list of things I can hammer you on for 2 years. Because like inflation's not going to come down overnight. So if it's not down in 3 months, you're like, Mr. Sunak, you promised inflation was going to come down. You used 5-point plans.
So it's amazingly naive. I don't know. I thought it was bizarrely naive. But they all seem to do it like it's like Theresa May calling the election, like they all seem to have this. It's their own insecurity. Like it's clearly that they have imposter syndrome and they don't feel that they need to be there. And it's sort of like, it's like, I'll do this for you. It doesn't. Yeah, it shows insecurity to me.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. It's the way you would talk to a kid. It's like, I'll get your dinner ready for you and we'll have this ready and that'll be good and I'll have a story time and you can go to sleep then, okay? You can nod off.
Yeah, whereas I think, a more astute, clever politician is one that comes out and says like, I'm going to listen to you. Like I'm going to, it's basically saying, I'm not going to listen to you. This is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do this because this is what you want. And everyone's looking at it going, I don't think it is.
Well, what do you think of Keir Starmer's response? Because I've got a theory on
what was his response? I didn't hear.
Well, this is the problem with Keir Starmer. Is his response was basically the government's not doing a good enough job. And then the first question everyone says is like, well, what would you do? And his answer is always, well, I would get around the table. I would talk to this person, talk to that person. I'm sure they wouldn't expect me to have a solution right here, right now. But the problem Labour have got in this country is the Tories, for all the mistakes they made, I think, a very astute political move in the last 10 years, which is all the centre ground policies that they could institute without fucking off their base, they instituted.
Right.
So they've captured more of the Tony Blair, Blairite New Labour aspects. I mean, Keir Starmer said the way we're going to pay for everything is we're going to enter into contracts with private business, and government's going to work with private business, and we're not going to get a big checkbook out to help solve the NHS and help solve underemployment and stuff.
Yeah, they're lost, aren't they? I think the reason the Labour Party are lost is because they were built on a Labour movement that doesn't really exist anymore, and that's the kind of thing. And I think they should. I think they should move. I think they should evolve into the Green Party and become part of the Green Party. That's the movement now. Do you know what I mean? That's a movement I think everyone could get behind. But there's not enough people in manufacturing, or or stick to, like, they're confused.
You can either be a party of progress. Well, I think they probably have to be a party of progress, and they have to progress towards we're a party for like metropolitan, ideologically progressive people, or progress towards Britain's going to be the greenest economy in the world, and that is what we're gonna.
To be honest, Fianna Fáil in Ireland probably have the same problem as Labour, and it's probably a case of the party evolved by being in power.
Yeah.
And that evolution brought it so far away from its origins that it's now struggling for identity.
Yeah. Yeah. I think every major West, like the Democrats in America, are quite similar.
Yeah. They all
because like you say, they're all founded on the principles of when you're a manufacturing economy, looking after the interests of the workers, not just the factory owners. Essentially, that's kind of like all their guts, all their roots. And like you say, once that evaporates, you're like, well, who are we for? Who are we helping? Who are we?
Exactly. And then once you've been in power, then you've worked with different power brokers, and then they become part of your whole system and your machine, like. And then you're struggling to keep them on side and not them on side. But movements just run their course, like. But I to be honest with you, I thought there would have been a Green Labour movement. I thought there would have been one when Al Gore brought the movie out.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, like, we got asked. Did I ever tell you when I was living in America, the agency I worked at contributed to Hillary Clinton's campaign, and we got asked. A few of us got asked to like contribute ideas for like sort of communications ideas, and that was one thing I put in front of them. I wrote this like paper about how if you just come out and say you're gonna create more green jobs in key swing states, and you're gonna reinvent the American economy along those lines.
Yeah.
There's no reason you can't be that candidate. And they were like, oh, it's too pie in the sky. And my response was, well, if it's not that, you need to, if you guys have got a different alternative that isn't that's like as concrete as that, fair play to you. But it's 10 years later, and I don't think 7 years later, I don't think any Western has got anything close.
No, the AOC says it's a Green New Deal is the movement that everyone's crying out for. Like, I think that's I think that's something that a lot of people can get behind. I think if a politician like Tony Blair came along and was pushing a Green New Deal, I think he'd have massive support. Like a movement like that was like, we're going to create better jobs, cleaner jobs, healthier lifestyle. Do you know what I mean? A fair economy, this whole thing, and people brought into it. You're off, like, and that's a modern Labour movement, really. Yeah,
because it's really its root. You're taking the best bit, which is looking after the populace rather than the privileged.
Yeah,
you're transposing that into what they need now. Speaking of populace rather than privilege, how did you like we haven't really chatted since we came back from France, because we're in like, because that's a country that I don't know how you feel, or like how Erica feels. I just think they get so much of the life bit right. It just feels like, but chatting to a few people when we were there, like Sadra and stuff, she was like, the real downside is you can't get anything done. So I've been thinking about this a lot. Like, would you rather live in a place where life's more comfortable day to day, but you can't get anything done?
What does she mean you can't get anything?
It's like, so like in England or America or Ireland, for that matter, you can like have an idea, speak to somebody, get it made, get things moving, get things, rent that theater, book that show, design that website. Just like in France, you just can't. It's like days, weeks, months drift by.
Somewhere, look at it, somewhere in the middle. Like, I think there was a German ambassador to Ireland once, and he said he couldn't understand why the countries in Europe don't just look at what works well in other countries and then adopt a system where you've got a little bit of everything, you know.
Yeah.
Like the big, certainly in Ireland, definitely in England too, like the big thing we could learn from certainly some of the continental countries is housing. They seem to have got housing a lot better than us. Like, but I don't understand why you can't have, you know, the housing, the health, education, why you can't have these things well and still have flexibility within the business world. I don't understand why you can't have a hodgepodge of everything.
I mean, I think my experience with French business, it comes down to like lunch. I think as I'm not being facetious, I'm being genuine. Like if you take a 2.5 hour lunch break,
yeah,
and you get at 9:30, you have a cup of coffee, you start work at 10, you break off for lunch at 12:30, you come back at 2, you have another cup of coffee, and you leave at 5:30. That is a very different work day to.
So this is my take on it, right? From 18, I would say to 40, I'm 40 now, from 18 to 40, 45, you want the American British system. And
Yeah.
from 45 onwards, you want the French system.
Pre-retirement. You get pre-retirement.
Yeah. So that's why, like, young people from places like Italy and France and Spain will come to London and places like that, and old people from here will try to retire there.
That's it. This should be part of someone's manifesto. You get pre-retirement from 40 to 55.
The under 45s can have Dublin, the over 45s can have Galway, and we're going to have different laws.
That's it. How many? You could probably extend it for, like, you know what? The drink driving limit goes up a little bit past 40. You've been driving a long time. It's fine.
Yeah, you can. Different laws, like a hybrid system of laws.
Yeah, I think that's what we need. Like, there's different venues. Like, this is an over 45 space. The music volume is a lot lower.
Yeah, absolutely. Like a bit more of a hodgepodge thing. I still always think though, like, I suppose it's very, very tricky. Like, I suppose a happiness index would, like, instead of GDP, a happiness index would make a huge difference, because if then countries would start to evolve towards what was making the majority of people happy.
Oh, totally. So I've been thinking, like, we chatted about this in Paris. I've been thinking a lot about my diet and like booze and food and just my relationship with all of it. And I was watching this thing called the French paradox, because French people, by and large, they have like really, really low instances of heart failure, really low instances of heart disease, like very low instances of diabetes. And they basically, these papers ascribe it to the fact that they take a lot longer to eat. They're a lot less stressed.
Yeah.
They get full faster because they're kind of like spreading food out over 2 hours. They feel really good when they're done. Then they don't snack, and they have like a light dinner, and they don't get pissed. That's the other. They
don't get pissed. Yeah, it is a healthier way of life. Like I lived with a French family for 3 weeks when I was 14. Now I found it extremely boring at the time, but in hindsight, I look back and I think, God, it was a great way to live. Like, and to be fair, look, it's probably from a health point of view, the biggest difference between us and them is they are eating higher quality food. Yeah. Like that is the biggest difference. They have put much more of a priority and emphasis on eating good quality food. We haven't. We like food is like we've made food a sort of an afterthought, really.
Luxury, almost sinful luxury, indulgence.
Yeah, work has become our thing. Everything about us is like work. Food is like, if we were able to not eat, we wouldn't eat. Do you know what I mean? Like,
oh, my dad's like that, and
yeah.
like you know how much my mum like loves cooking and that Italian side of my dad is like, he said that to me before. If I could get by without eating, I absolutely
would. Yeah. It's a whole different thing. But yeah, I think a happiness kind of thing. Now, the other thing too, you always have to be very wary of, which is with any of these kind of conversations or any of these thoughts, and like this I think this is the way Rishi Sunak's kind of fucking up too. Like, is you have to be aware that in a country, your perspective and your wants and your needs are not universal.
Yeah.
Because like what's good for you now, and this is a classic thing that happens to politicians. Politicians often fall into the trap where they believe what's good for them is good for the country, is good for everybody, because they don't realize that they're different than other people. You know, so and to be fair, like most of our societies are really built and structured in a way that's most preferable to like 40-year-old men. Like a lot of what we do is like, you know, like a guy who's got a bit of energy.
And long may that continue. Long may that continue.
So is that like, you know, I'm going to do a video about this, like, but Rishi Sunak saying everyone needs to learn maths up till they're 18. Like it's almost like a Freudian slip. He's basically saying what we need is a country with more people like me. Like that's what he's saying. He goes like, you know, it's not a case. I'm not going to adapt the country to you. I'm going to adapt the country to me, and you'll all get on a lot better if you act like me more. Like he might as well just say, look, I think you should all do maths till you're 18, work in a bank, marry for money. Do you know what I mean? Like it just become
and be called Rishi, ideally. Is that
be called Rishi, like? But you know, he'd be going around food banks going, have you never thought about marrying for money? Like, do you know what I mean? You're a good looking fella.
If you have 2 kids and only 3 eggs, how many eggs does each kid get from the food bank? So you could do that maths if you just
if you tried, you know. But yeah, the maths one is weird, but yeah, I think a country is very hard. I think systems is the best way to run countries. Ireland has done a thing recently that's been very successful. Is these panels, like so the whole abortion and the divorce referendum has all come where Ireland does a thing almost like jury duty. Like 100 people get randomly picked, and they get paid to go and stay in a hotel and have meetings, and they're given a topic, and they discuss the topic, and they come up with ideas. And the idea behind it is 100 random people will come to similar conclusions that the whole country together will come to. Like Georgia, and it's seemingly very effective, because whatever usually whatever they come up with is quite palpable to everybody. Because they're considered a microcosm of everybody.
I mean those things can work really well if you get the sampling right. If your randomness is
if you get the
right.
sampling right, yeah. So different demographics, different genders, different backgrounds, the whole lot.
Go on, sorry.
But because most politics is like is a certain group discussing all of that kind of stuff, and they've massive blind spots.
And you can't conceive of someone else's frame of when you can't conceive of someone else's frame of thinking. That's when you get into real blind spot. My dad and a lot of his like sort of Tory mates, that's where they would have the biggest issues.
Well, the whole economic model is built on the idea that we all our actions are to maximize our earnings, which and like there are a percentage of people who do operate like that, but it's a very niche group of people.
And people who don't operate like that are made to feel like they're somehow less than, or they picked the wrong thing, or it's childish, or
that they're wrong. Like, you know, basically, if you have human emotion and empathy and you do things to care for people, you're being told you're wrong. Like, you know, the people we should be looking up to are the people that we punish the most, and are the people that we tell are wrong. Like, and like, you know, I might be closer to the maximizing economic than being a carer, but like, I know that they're right and I'm wrong. You know, but it's just, I would see it a lot in the work I did. Now, I definitely, as I was growing up, would have been of the mind that you should just maximize your earning in life. That's how I would have thought. Like Patrick Keelty used to have a joke where he was asked, how does he decide what projects he does? And he goes, well, I look at who's making it, I look at who I'm going to be working with, I look at who the director is, I read the script, and then I do the one that's offering the most money. And I used to think that it was very funny. Like I thought that was very in line with who I was the person. But then working in pharmacy, and you see people who who are not motivated in that way and don't operate in that way at all, like completely operate in a sort of a more caring kind of emotion, not even emotional, I don't think emotional is the right word, but a more emphatic kind of way. And their actions are driven by looking after people and helping people. And I think after a while of being in an environment where I saw a lot of those people, you start to realize, like, you know, they're more admirable. Like they're far more admirable, and they're far more impressive to be around than the other people. And the other people, I think when I grown up, would almost call these type of people idiots, or, you know, naive, or whatever. But they have a very rich life too, like, because like people genuinely care about them because they care about other people too. And really, you know, having a system that doesn't leverage their strengths seems foolish to me now.
Yeah, or like when there's only one way you can be seen as valuable to a society, is through this prism of maximizing income, and if you're not, then there's I mean, I think about that with motherhood often. Like I feel my sister has like a real, you know, back and forth, because she's super bright and she's got a master's in economics and was doing health economics before she got pregnant. And she loves being a mum. She's about to have a second kid, but she constantly feels like she's not doing enough. She's like, but I should be earning money as well. And basically, it's like I should be earning money as well, otherwise I won't have any value. And I think that's a real downside of a certain interpretation of feminism, that if you are a mother, you're somehow not doing as much as you should be, or it's less than what you're capable of doing. You're more than that.
Yeah, like it's economics, isn't it? Because like the truth of it is, you should get paid for that. Like there should be a system that somehow you get paid for caring and looking after people. Because like we basically have a system where if you're looking after an elderly person, if you're a carer for an elderly person, right, you're considered less valuable than someone who works in a shop renting out or selling computer games. Like, are we really saying that the fucking guy selling the computer games is contributing more than the person looking after someone? Like, you know,
gamers, but yes, I know what you mean.
But you know what I mean? Like, you're rewarding this person, you're not rewarding that. Like, it's just but it makes sense when you remember that all of these systems were drawn up by men who saw women as inferior, and who also saw children as, like, you know, like a lot of the Constitution, most of the Constitution, well, Britain doesn't have a Constitution, but like certainly the American Constitution, these were all written when like children didn't have any rights. You know what I mean? Children were viewed like pets.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, loads of children were dying, so they were kind of like, it was sort of, you know, the child mortality rate was high. Children weren't seen as deserving of any kind of rights or protection. Women were seen as, you know, second class, like not even second class citizens. They weren't seen as citizens. They were like a fucking robotic Hoover.
Yeah. It's robotic. I mean, I won't pry into which aspect of hoovering they're being used for, but it's interesting because I was going to chat about the thing I've been loving this week, which is this. Have you come across this podcast series, Empire?
Podcast series called Empire? No, go on.
It's fantastic. It's great. It's two historians looking at different empires. The first one was British India. Second one is the Ottoman Empire. And
Okay.
it's absolutely huge knowledge. I mean, we've all got so many knowledge gaps, but I didn't know virtually anything about I knew it sort of came out of the Byzantine. I knew that it was based around in Istanbul. But you mentioned the women thing there. I don't think I fully appreciated how much of human history most people weren't seen as citizens. Like the idea of a citizen is
yeah.
the idea of a citizen that has a stake in the country is such a recent phenomenon for anyone to be given that.
Very recent. And it was like you had to vote if you're a man who owned land.
That was it. And that's just a small percentage of people, and everybody else was nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
Sometimes it's interesting, I think, to think like, yes, those rules were made by men, exactly what you're saying, but actually what they were made by, if you took gender out of it, what they were actually made by was an incredibly small substrata of the elites in a society. More so than the gender thing. Maybe that dynamic is more. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because people would put it on gender, but there was plenty of like men who didn't have property, like
and that's what this. I mean, I'll just dive into it. So it's something I adore, because it's like it's giving you such an interesting perspective on parts of history where you have blind spots. So for example, knowing that when we in Europe think of like the Renaissance and think of like what was going on in Europe, the Ottoman Empire was the biggest empire at that time. It was the most. It was like the biggest, most commercially successful, largest geographically, most military force. Like Henry VIII used to look at the Ottoman Empire with admiration. Like, how can I be more like them? And it's interesting because I was like, I don't have any of that in my history.
No, it's all very skewed. Yeah, history is very biased. Certainly in school, it's very biased.
Yeah, and also like you realize the other thing this podcast series is great for, because it's not BBC or it's just two independent historians. They're super honest about how brutal they were. Because there's this whole narrative around, I don't know if you've ever heard this, maybe it's more of an American thing. I went on a date with a girl last time I was in America, and she was telling me that Caucasian people are inherently more homicidal.
Oh yeah, that's bollocks.
Yeah, of course it is, because like genetic, and these guys are great at pointing out that like the Ottomans were like way more technologically advanced, way more scientifically forward, but they're also fucking brutal. Like, they took slaves like it was nobody's business, and they're like they followed the Roman model: conquer someone, enslave them all, get them to work, move on. And I think it's actually, in a weird way, it's a really good way of like showing how humanity has all these common connective threads that don't start and end with like American history, for example.
No, well, America's the big anomaly, isn't it? Because they say that the natural, and Europe as well, because the natural center of the world should be that Silk Road.
Yeah.
From Mediterranean to China. That for the majority of history, that is where power lay. And we've had, I don't know, like is it hundreds of years now where the center of power shifted to Europe and shifted to America, but that's completely out of odds with the majority of history.
Yeah, so the guy who wrote that book, Peter Frankopan,
the Silk Road, yeah.
He's on this pod.
He's on the pod, is he? Yeah. So I read that book, The Silk Road, and that he says he puts up great argument for it, that basically the Silk Road is the center of the world, and like it's almost like a magnet. It'll always move back to it unless there's some quirk of history.
Yeah, which makes sense, and I think he comes on and he talks about because he wrote a lot about the Byzantine Empire and a lot about the Silk Road, and so he's a great person to have connecting the dots between those two parts. Those two parts of history, and like how just how important the Ottoman Empire was. It's fascinating. I think you'd absolutely love to call it Empire. I think I must
have a look at it. Yeah, so Empire. It's a podcast.
And
is it a regular podcast, or is it a series? Like,
so they do it in series. So they did. I think last year they did British India. It was like 12 episodes, and this year once a week they're doing the Ottoman Empire.
I'll start with the Ottoman one then.
Yeah, it's great. Have you got anything you'd recommend at the minute?
Well, you were saying I watched the first season of White Lotus over Christmas.
Right.
Thought it was brilliant. Did you watch it?
I watched the first 2 episodes. I'll be honest, I couldn't get into it after 2 episodes. Turned it off.
Oh man, I got it. I thought it was great. No, I thought the whole thing was great. Now the other thing I'm into, I bought a book in the airport. I'm in the middle of reading it. Jesus, I got hooked onto it. Do you ever have a guy called Jonathan Franzen?
Yes.
Have you ever read him?
No, never read him. Heard of him. Never read him.
I read The Corrections when I was in university, so I read that 20 years ago or something. And to be fair, I loved it, and I always thought like that was his first big novel, and I always thought I'd come back to him, but I never did. But then I was in the airport and needed a book, and I bought Freedom, and I'm flying through it, and it's very like The Corrections. He has a certain style of writing, but just personally, I just think it's an amazing type of writing. It's very like an old book. But it's like a modern version of an old book. So usually his book, both of these books are they're just very focused on a family, and it's very about the details of the family, which is very like a thing like Charles Dickens would write. It's very like a book from older. It's kind of like got that classic. He's got that classic novel like detail of the time, but the contemporary bit is just that it's set in modern day America. And I think the stuff that's just amazing about it is, and it's probably something we don't really, I suppose we're probably all aware of, but we don't really talk about it, is like luck is such a big thing in life. Like just luck. And there's an old I used to go to mass when I was younger. Like there's an old story in the Bible that very, they kind of say like the farmer scattered seeds, and like some seeds land on fertile ground, some land on unfertile ground, and some of the seeds are all the same, but some of them grow well and some of them don't grow well. And it's just so true. Like, and within every family, you have the different. Obviously, you see it with William and Harry now. Like the little different bits of luck, and what he really captures, which is really interesting, which again is very interesting with William and Harry, is within every family, there's winners and losers within every family, and regardless of how privileged you are, if you're one of the people who perceives themselves to be a loser within their own family, you'll be very hurt by it. And he's brilliant at capturing that in novels, like brilliant.
I think that's such a big thing. I mean, that ties to what we were talking about earlier about different ways of understanding value. So like if you're in a family where like you are pushed to like you have to succeed commercially, and one of you doesn't, then but if you're in a family where people create space and say, well, you're good at this and you're good at that, and everyone can find their own value and their own way of
he deals with that a lot of the time. He will have the sort of because America's so clearly defined, you got your conservative family and your liberal family. So he'll have like the liberal child in the conservative family, or the conservative child in the liberal family, and just the conflicts that creates within the families, because like we all know, and we probably know this story more because creative people are more likely to write this story of the tortured creative in the conservative family, right? But what also is equally as funny is like the conservative, Thatcherite go-getter in the liberal family who wants him to be like an artist, and he's like, I want to fucking have a construction company and build a building. You know what I mean? And they're like, can you not like recite Shakespeare or something? So it's all of those conflicts, and it's just very funny, and it's just family. He's brilliant at getting family rivalries, and then also what he's brilliant at getting is misconceptions and misperceptions, where one person has an interaction with someone and they perceive them being viewed in this way, and like decades can pass and then they might have a conversation with them and they realize that how they interpreted that situation was not how the other person interpreted it, and how they believe they're perceived by that person is not how they're perceived. And I just find it magical. Like, I just find
And
it.
you've built a whole life on those perceptions.
Yeah, on these perceptions, and you've acted in this way on this, like, and it really, I think it's right, and really reminds you of how wrong you're getting it all the time.
Oh, what's the book called?
Freedom.
Oh, that sounds great. It sounds fantastic. I can't remember who said it. Some writer was saying how he defined the first part of his career and the latter part. And he was like, the first part was about hope, so like writing from like his 20s to like his 40s was like hope, and then after 40 was loss. And I think, well, I think we just brought it up there, like, because when you're young, everything's potential. So you can if you make mistakes, you've got time to correct them. And I think when you hit like our age, it's probably for the first time in your life, you're like, oh, some of this stuff's settled in. Like I misperceived that situation for 20 years and it had a big impact. And it's like, that's governed,
But what I think when you're younger, right, you want the world to change, and you want to change it in a way that will suit you, elevate you, and make you powerful and successful. You want the world to evolve around you, right? Mm-hmm. And then I think when you get older, you're like, you don't want the world to revolve because you don't want to be left behind. or left out. You want everything to stop. I can't. Yeah. I don't have the ability to process new shit. Like, can everyone just stand still?
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. I saw that at Christmas. I went for a beer with my dad and his mates, and obviously we're getting older, but I know I'm not old yet because I don't know if you've ever been in this situation. They use me as like the racism canary. They'll like say something. It's like, like, is that all right? And almost certainly it's like, probably not. They're like, oh, good to know. Okay. They don't like that one, do they? Oh, I mean, I wouldn't say they or them for it. Oh, well, good. Okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm looking now. I wasn't hanging out with too many older people, so I didn't really encounter that now much, to be honest with you.
No, you just got abused. You just got abused by a toddler.
I just got abused by a toddler. Yeah, no, my Christmas, where I go home now, everyone's just kids. This is everyone's obsessed with it.
That's the best thing about Christmas, though. I think the weirdest years of Christmas for me were the years where we'd all grown up, but none of us had kids yet.
Oh yeah. Very weird.
They're the weirdest Christmas years.
Pointless.
Yeah, because you're kind of like cosplaying your childhood, right? You're kind of like pantomiming your own childhood, but there aren't any new kids yet. And now we've got like Toby's kids, Taya's kids. They're like running around everywhere. They love. I mean, your nephews and nieces must be the same. They love Christmas. Brings a whole new vibe.
Yeah, those ones where you're adults but you've no kids, like they're weird. They're actually weird. That you're all sitting in and like they make no sense. Like,
yeah, in retrospect, if I was going to give my kids advice, like they're the years you should, if you want to go to like Munich for Christmas or go to like see your brother in Sydney,
no way, yeah,
do it in those years before people start children, and
they're the ones.
Yeah, because after that, yeah.
So the Empire thing. I'm gonna look that Empire thing. So that's what you're loving. So what's annoying you?
Oh, I had this the other day. So people FaceTiming in public without headphones. So that I don't know if you experienced this, but I had it the other day, and I was talking to somebody else, a real person in real life, and the person doing the FaceTime with no headphones got annoyed at me and my friend that we were interrupting their.
Oh my. Where was that? On public transport or something?
Just like coming out of the station. Yeah, like picked up the thing and we were just chatting. And I was like, what fucking planet have you grown up on? Like, what part of your education or just human interaction has been missing that you think you screaming at someone on a phone takes precedent over me and we're having a normal conversation at a normal decibel level? Couldn't believe it. I was like, I've never wanted anyone to trip upon stairs more than.
Yeah, it's funny because you do see that a lot. Like it doesn't bother me, but I do see it a lot, and I could never imagine doing it. I couldn't imagine it being comfortable. I don't see what the enjoyment of that walking along the street, talking into like looking at them, but I do see it more and more.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm like, what? I can't imagine that's a good conversation for anybody. Like you're screaming. Surely they can barely, because like they have to do this all the time.
Because you can't hear it.
You can't hear them. And I think it's like, it's the same thing that bothers me when people play their own music on a train or play, I had it once, like music, their own music in a gym.
To play their own, to just have the phone with the speaker on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, what do you think the rest of us are getting out of this interaction?
With the music, I often wonder, are they half looking for a confrontation? Sometimes it feels like that. They're almost like, I fucking dare you to say something to me. Like
I agree.
I've had a bad day and I'm ready to go. Like,
yeah,
you know?
Yeah, totally.
Or is it that they just forgot their?
I think it's a status thing. I think it's a status dominance thing.
You know what I think it is? I think within their own family, they were so clearly the winner and the favorite of their parents that they think that they can just do whatever they want wherever they go.
Interesting. So I was wondering, is it that, or is it the opposite? Is it like they haven't had enough attention, so they constantly?
No, I think that kind of stuff is like they think they can. They've never been told to be considered of other people.
Yeah,
they're the kings of their family. They're the kings and queens of their family.
Just wild, just a wild behavior in a public place. I was also wondering, because this is where you want to check your own self, and like you don't want to sound like an old guy just yet. But I was trying to think, when did that phenomena start happening of people just deciding to blare out their own conversations in the middle of the street? Was that?
I think
COVID?
No, that's always happened. That's why I always listen to music. But that's all. People have always been like that. Like, and I hate talking. I hate talking on public transport on the phone or something like that. Like, so if someone rings me, I usually say, "Look, I can't talk." But I ring people. I'll be honest with you, and sometimes they're in that situation. I can tell that they're in that situation, and I'd be like, "Oh, I'll ring you back. It's fine." Or whatever. And they're like, "No, it's fine." And
yeah,
I don't want to say to them, I don't think you should be doing that.
You're being rude. I'm going to stop you.
Yeah, I don't think you should be doing that. And you know, like people come in, because I work in pharmacy, like people come into shops on phones. Now, I once worked with a woman who refused to serve someone if they're on the phone. She wouldn't serve them. But people will come in and they'll be on the phone and they will carry on their conversation and they will do the whole, oh yeah. People do it all the time. Like,
ooh, nah, I can't do that one either.
Again, it really doesn't. It doesn't bother me. Like, I don't care. Like,
so what's been bothering you? What's your thing for the week?
I don't know what's been bothering me now. You said about thinking. The thing that always gets me with people in the public is more. What kills me is when people, like, they walk in front of you and they slow down. That's always the thing that gets me off. That's the only kind of public thing that gets to me. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or someone like, they walk in front of you and then they stop. Or if you're walking, do you know what I mean? Like, I kind of feel like there's unwritten rights away. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, someone walks, they see you walking and they cut you off, like they cut your line. Like, you shouldn't be cutting people's line. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you wouldn't do that in a car, would you?
Exactly. So that's the only kind of public sort of thing that gets to me. Now, it only gets to me very, very briefly. Like, sometimes I would feel like pushing into the person and saying,
yeah,
fuck doing, like.
What do you think? Because it either comes out of, so I sometimes think with things like that, if you're not used to like a city, because in the country, no one cares really where you walk in the But in London or in New York, you do treat the sidewalk like it's a car lane. Like you are,
Darling, yeah.
like you're trying to get somewhere.
I had a funny, I had a funny one once. I was walking home. I was listening to music. It was probably like 12, 1 a.m. Like it was late, and I had a couple of drinks, and I was rushing home. And I crossed the road, and just as I crossed the road and entered the footpath, a couple had come around the corner. So we're now at the same place on the thing. 12, 1 o'clock nights, but they were walking in the same way. So I sped up to like, because I didn't want to walk beside them. So I sped up, and they sped up. And then I slowed down. So then the guy, and they fucking slowed down. And I swear to God, I just turned around and I went, either go fast or go slow. Like, don't fucking. But what was funny about it was we were both trying to do the same thing. Like, to be fair to them, like, you know, that's why they sped up. That's why like we both like we'd married each other. Like they had the same thought as me. Let's speed up so we're not walking beside them. And I had done the same. And then it slowed down. And then I just I said, and then I sped off. Like, do you know what I mean?
I was hoping they were like trying to bring you into a park-based threesome or something. Like
I don't like. I don't make, if anyone tries to I don't stop like on the streets. It's rarely like I know it can be perceived rude and whatever, like, but it's I'm very wary of. I think when I was a teenager, I got beaten up a good few times. Like, you know, beaten up and mugged a lot. Like I grew up in a place where you very easily could get punched or mugged. So because of that, I have a sort of you're always best to keep moving. You're always best to keep moving, even when I'm in places where you can be a little bit more relaxed. You know,
totally. And you want to keep your head up. I mean, me and Dominic are going to start taking self-defense classes.
Really?
Yeah. Because I think we're both like, well, all like short guys. Just wanted to feel a bit more confident, I guess.
Yeah, well, I've never really had any issues since I was a teenager. But when I was a teenager, I had it a lot. Like I had it, it was constant, you know. But I've had nothing since then. Like,
yeah, I think Dom wants to start taking because of his fiance. I think he just wants to feel like he can handle himself more. And he was like, do you want to split the cost? And I was like, sure, sounds.
What are you doing? Jiu-jitsu?
I think something like that, yeah. me, my brother, and some guy called Barry.
Have you seen Paul Smith is going to do some cage fight?
Yes.
Ah, Jesus Christ, man. I wish him all the best, but like, I think he's going to get the shit kicked out.
Has he ever done anything like that before?
I'm sure he's done some, but
I know a lot of comics feel that it was like there's a certain like Elliot Steele's big into MMA, isn't it? There's like quite a few comics who are quite
doing that kind of stuff, yeah.
I don't know if he's been training sparring for years or whatever, but
could be wrong now. Elliot Steele, like, he looks to me like he'd be good at it. Paul Smith doesn't, though. I don't think Paul Smith looks fucking strong at all. Like, I could be wrong now.
We'll see. See in a couple of months. Hell of a thing, because celebrity boxing's one thing. Boxing's so technical, and you wear all the headgear, and it's sort of like you're designed to not hit each other, and hitting's kind of an occasional thing. But the few bits of MMA I've watched, it just seems like there's no escape from.
Well, I have a friend. I think you met him, David Hogg. He's a big fella, like he's 6 foot something, rugby guy from Bristol, and he was in Thailand and he did the Muay Thai. He did training and the whole lot. Now he is a big fella, and he did a proper fight. There's films, and this Thai guy, who was a good half a foot, maybe a foot smaller than him, came out, kicked him in the face straight away, knocked him out.
Yeah,
I just knocked him clean out.
And that's it. You train for like 6 months, and then that's
it's just like boom, gone. Like,
see you later. Yeah, That's the thing. I'm going to be very. I'll keep you updated. I'm very intrigued to know what this guy does in self-defense, because that's always my big thing with any martial art based. And not that I have any experience of it, so I'm talking from a place of ignorance. But what do you do if, you know, what's the instances of street confrontations where someone attacks you in a sort of head-on way, or you can do something about it?
Like, but personally, I think you're looking at it from like, maybe you need, like, let's be rational about it. Why is if someone's going to attack, like, they're going to attack you because they want something obvious. So like, my thing would be, I'll give it to you. You know, yeah, fuck, I have it. Do you know what I mean? Like, honestly, if you're desperate enough to want to exert violence on me for the thing, you need it more than I do. Like, I'll never have much on me. Like, I don't wear a watch. I'd never be someone who wears expensive stuff to kind of signify, even if I had money. Like, I don't have money, but even if I did. So like, I the most I'm going to have is my phone and a little bit of cash. Fuck it, you can have it. Like, I'm not, I'd rather throw away 500 quid than,
I think that's where Dom's at, because Dom wears a very fancy watch and his missus now has a very fancy engagement ring, and she wears
see, I don't, I'm not programmed to think like that. Like, I've never thought of it like, you know, someone have a nice watch. Like, to me, it's just like, I actually, in a bizarre sort of way, like, think that I have friends with nice watch and everything, but I actually think it hinders your freedom, because if you feel the need to wear an expensive watch everywhere, then there are streets you cannot walk down.
Totally.
You've got a target on your back, and I think many people would say a legitimate target on your back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's the good thing about just when phones, when these first came out, there was more muggings for them because they were rarer and you could sell them. But like, now they're all blocked and everyone has one. And
it's harder to do it.
Have you got any bits you're working on? Any bits you're trying?
Any bits I'm trying? Yeah, quite a lot actually. I always find like a break is very good for ideas. Lot of bits I'm working on. One of the I'm off to Mexico now soon, which I think is going to be pretty fruitful. I don't know if you saw on the news, like, it was even on the BBC, that the Mexican authorities arrested El Chapo's son,
right,
in Culiacan, and then the narco gang set fire to buses to block highways, shot at an aeroplane, and the mayor of the town told everybody to stay in their houses. Like, is that
near where you're going?
Essentially, that's where I'm going. Yeah, so essentially, that's where I'm going. If my mother doesn't see the news, you know, so they'll be talking about that. Another thing I wanted about an idea I had recently that I want to work on is bizarre desires. Right. So, like, when you're in a relationship, your girlfriend will always ask you, like, what do you desire? Like, what do you like? And just talking about how I find it very embarrassing to say what I like, because I'm very basic. I'm very, like, my tastes are very basic, like, and just how I find it very embarrassing. But clearly, I couldn't be the only one who's like this. That I get very turned on by, like, lingerie and silky things. Do you know what I mean? Like, and obviously, like, all these shops wouldn't exist if I was the only one who felt like that. But it is kind of embarrassing to admit. It's a very unsophisticated, it's a very unsophisticated, primitive thing to say that I like the feel of silky things. And whenever I touch something silky, I get aroused. Like, it's a fucking weird thing to say. And also, I get very aroused by the color yellow, which...
Well, you're welcome.
Well, no, that's custard. Big difference between yellow and custard. A bright yellow, the brighter, I don't know what, like, yellow, just a woman dressed in bright yellow, it Now it's a weird one because it doesn't get me aroused, like it doesn't get me, but it gets me like, you know, like kids watching telly. Just sort of, it's just like a magnet. It just kind of draws me in. Pregnant women is another one that does that to me. Not so much aroused, but you know, pregnant women get this glow. Have you ever seen the glow pregnant women get? Have you seen it? Do you know it?
Yeah.
And like I would notice that. Like it would, if you know, if I was not really paying attention to my surroundings, and suddenly a pregnant woman with a glow walked into the periphery of my surroundings, something in me like picks up on that.
Yeah.
I remember talking to someone about it once, right? And this is the bit I'm kind of working on. I was talking to two girls about it when I was in my early 20s. And one of them said to me, oh, well, you know that's an evolutionary thing, that basically that when women are pregnant, they release that glow and men respond to it because the men know that they have to protect the pregnant woman from, so you're on high alert to be a protector, right? And then the other girl, so we'd say that's the conservative girl, and then the more liberal girl turned around and said, it is an evolutionary thing, but that's not it, you're wrong. It's basically, you're attracted to that because in prehistoric times, a woman who was pregnant was a risk-free ride because she couldn't get pregnant again.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't agree. I think the first person is right, but I think the idea
Yes.
that prior to condoms and contraceptive, like that people were going around going, oh, you're pregnant, like let's just have fucking loads of sex for the next 9 months. Let's have so much that we're bored of it and we don't have any for another 5 years. That this is risk-free, responsibility-free sex.
Yeah.
And all that. And I just think that's a very funny idea. But also, I think the girls really, these two girls really are seeing the world from a female perspective and not a male perspective, because the risk of sex in pre-civilization terms is that you would sleep with someone who a bigger man felt he had ownership of, and he would kill you. I think that was more the risk. Do you know what I mean? And you don't see this as much anymore. Like I remember when I was a teenager, when I was a child, like you'd see a lot of fights in Ireland outside chippers. Like a guy would fight. It was always over a girl. Like it was always, you know, and men have kind of hidden, you know, that damp and down thing. They felt like, you know, someone was hitting on a girl that they felt they had some kind of ownership over, even if they were going out or not going out, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I was thinking it's interesting in that bit that you start off with saying the tastes are very basic. You're like, oh, I like lingerie, I like the color yellow, very specific color of yellow, and then pregnant ladies. So
but again, I'm not. Listen, I'm telling you, pregnant women one. I think the yellow one is unusual. The lingerie and the pregnant women, I think there's a universality.
Yeah. The lingerie definitely. I just think it's funny that because pregnant women, it's like there's no lingerie porn category because it's so like, of course, you know, like you said, Victoria's Secret, yeah, it's everywhere. Yellow sounds quite innocent and childlike. Pregnant women, you are stepping into like a slightly fetishy territory. I just think it's funny that it kind of like it tastes very basic and so
it does that. Well, you've probably given me a clue of how to make it funny. Like it is then to come up with something utterly like that's the rule of three, isn't it?
Yeah.
So like lingerie, the color yellow, and then come up with something fucking mental, like something like, you know, people who don't cut their toenails.
Yeah.
Okay, not that, but something that's so it becomes the surprise that it's so outlandish.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I presume, I don't know if you want to go there with the bit, but getting him back, and if someone else in a relationship has got very specific tastes and you've got quite basic ones, that can be quite
an
interesting
conversation. It can end a relationship. But what's also funny is it's funny how embarrassing it is to say what these things are like. It's embarrassing.
It is, and it shouldn't be really. I wonder where that embarrassment comes, because it can't all just be cultural and the Catholic Church.
No, it can't. There's got to be more to it. I think it's embarrassing because it's primal.
Right, yeah. It's like this, you're getting in touch with this like primal part of yourself that isn't fit for polite society, or isn't.
Yeah, well, I think there's always a conflict between your polite person and your primal person. There's always, and I don't think it's. I think there's an internal. I think it is an internal conflict.
Yeah, because maybe it's not society so much. Maybe it's more just like I won't be accepted as readily.
Well, I think it's. I don't. I think it's just there's just a conflict. Like, you know, you read a book, you have a chat, you feel like you're an intelligent kind of person, right? Then you go to the toilet, you misplace your hand, you wipe your ass, and you end up with shit in your hand. Like, it's a fucking, you know what I mean? It's a big fall, like. You know what I mean?
That's great. I think that's great. I think that's worth exploring in the bit.
Yeah, like it's a big fall. Like and so much of the history of art is the conflict between your primalness and your humanness. And okay, like, let's be honest about it, like, some people get it very wrong. Like, you know, like, obviously Bill Cosby, you know, he had a human side. You know, he's hiring these psychologists, he's doing all this, but his primal side was completely out of control. He had let the monster run free, like, and I could be wrong, but I always think with people like that, I think they would find it very difficult to sit and talk about the monster in the framework of the human.
Oh,
because there is a human there as well. Like, you know, like, hiring psychologists to make the American families look positive, giving money to, like, that's all positive human stuff. That's all coming from a good place. But it's the duality of characters. And one of my fascinations with politics is I think that duality is very strong in politicians, because, you know, so many politicians do genuinely do a lot of amazing stuff, like, and there is a lot of, you know, good stuff that they do like to come up with, but then they do horrific stuff as well, like.
yeah, absolutely. I think there's an interesting phrase, like it's a Native American phrase about like the white wolf and the black wolf. Like, you can there's two wolves at the door, and you have to choose which one to feed.
Which one you feed? Yeah.
And the sort of colonial interpretation of it was like, well, you only feed the white wolf because that's the good wolf. And in Native American culture, they said you have to feed both, because if you don't, the dark wolf starves, and then he runs rampant through your subconscious.
And that's the chimp paradox as well. That guy, the chimp paradox, he's from Leeds, actually, I think.
Is it?
Yeah. And he says, like, everyone has the primal chimp part, and he says the two mistakes people make is to pretend it doesn't exist. And if you pretend it doesn't exist, it can get out of control, or they don't engage with it. And he says that part of he says you have to train it, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and you see that in kids. I mean, that's actually a really good segue into the bit I'm working on, which is, so you had toddler trouble at Christmas. We had toddler trouble at Christmas. So Toby's boy Magnus is 5, and this is the first Christmas we've got like a lot of the nieces and cousins together. So the child of our cousin, so that's Magnus's second cousin.
Yeah,
it's the first time they met each other. She's 5, Maggie's 5. And they were just like smitten with each other. Right. Just like, and they both did like a dance recital, because they love Strictly Come Dancing, and they're both like impressed. We're impressed with each other's dance moves. And I, at one point, went into the kitchen just to make sure the kids were all right, put my head in the door. And there was, you know, when you're walking on at a house party and there's like a vibe, you've like interrupted someone who's about to cop off. They kind of had that energy.
They were kissing.
They were like holding little hands, and my cousin had told them that they were related, and they were freaked out. They're like, "No, we're not related." And then they're both just like,
"And are they related?"
Well, they're second cousins, right?
How does it, right? Explain second
cousins. So it's you tell me if I'm right. So it's my cousin's kid, and Toby's. So Sienna,
your first cousin's child.
We're first cousin's child.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's second cousins.
Yeah.
Legal though.
Legal and the basis of the most royal families, the basis of most monarchies. Wouldn't have a monarchy without this being in place. And they were just like staring at each other. And then Maggie just looked at me and went, Tom, I don't think we're related. And then Sienna was like, yes, I've never seen him before. I don't think we're related either. And then my youngest niece, Penelope, obsessed with Magnus, she came in and saw them like holding hands. I was like, no, down, no, put down.
Jesus.
I thought like, oh, it's nice to know women support women everywhere. And so I had to like scoop Penelope up, try to take her out of the room. Penelope starts screaming, and Magnus has come over to me and went, Tom, I'm going to need somewhere more private than this.
It's like the script of Game of Thrones in your house.
I know, and exactly. And so my guy brain kicked in, and I took him into another room. So him and Sienna could have like some private buckaroo, like whatever game they were playing. And then as we were all leaving, Sienna went to leave, and she's like, I can't leave yet. Magnus said he would show me to the door. And then Maggie like held her hand to the door.
Where are they getting all this romance
That's
from?
what I was wondering.
What the fuck have they been watching?
Well, that's the thing. Like, is this Disney? Is this because they've seen Disney stuff? Is it like super innate? That was the thing I was wondering. I was wondering where have they got this from? Because they both understood their roles, and they understood how it worked, and like they understood how it all, And I was thinking, like as my 5-year-old cousin got more game than me, that was honestly the first thing that went through my mind. Second thing was like, is it legal? Third thing was, where have they got it from? Fourth thing was, why was I so instinctively okay with like wingmanning my 5-year-old?
It's the admiration. You're just in awe of them.
I think that's it.
Like, he's got superpowers that I always wanted.
I think that's it.
It'd be very interesting to see. But like, the prediction will have to be he's going to be a smooth operator then.
Yeah.
Like, I think these things happen young. Like, I think a lot of that. I always thought that with the girl kind of thing. Like, I think it's very different than my understanding of it is very different than the pickup artist thing. I think some people just have it and some people don't. Like, and I think that the people I knew who were good with girls, I think it was obvious before they were even trying to get girls that they would be the ones that would be good with them. Do you know what I mean? They had a magnetism.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's Maggie. Like, he's handsome, he's good at sports, he can dance, and he knows that about himself.
You're so jealous of him.
So jealous of him. And he's so tall, Jack. He's so tall.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I've started pissing in his cornflakes just to try and get back at him.
So that's your bit. Now we'll finish on. So what are you looking forward to 2023? What's your
My
probably
goals?
have loads of stuff on, have you?
Oh, well, yeah, the big thing I'm trying to figure out is how to transition more of like stand-up in being more of the job bit of it. It's like nothing goes without the art side. Nothing works without getting the act better, getting the jokes better. Nothing works without any of that. But there's a couple of bigger gigs I want to do. There's a bigger venue in Leeds I want to try and bring on. And the European tour stuff that's a big focus to try and get ready for Edinburgh. Like you said, like doing Edinburgh this year, whatever I do there, seeing it as it'd be nice to build up momentum so that you weren't having to fly it all day, every day, all the time.
And have you applied? Are you going to go to Edinburgh?
I think, well, the thought was me and Ram had talked about doing British Indian Buddies there.
Yeah.
So it's like a compilation show, less pressure. It's a good advertisement for the show, from more people around the world.
Makes sense.
Something like that was like less pressure, and less like, because I don't think by August this year I'm going to be banging down the door with like, I have an hour the world needs to see. So I'd rather use it for like 10 days as a fun shop window. Because I mean, I think what we did last year, I'm glad we did it. The more times passed since it happened, the gladder I am we did it.
Yeah, I think I thought it was like, in hindsight, I thought it was a good first year. I thought there was ups and downs, like, but I think we learned a lot, and I definitely got a good lot out of it. In that,
Yeah,
my performance definitely improved, and the networking worked great. Like, because I did, you know, I got the Crackdown gigs. I did the gig with Brian, did the gigs with Mark Farrell. Felt the networking worked well, and I was hoping by doing it that I would feel confident to go back and do a year. I personally, I think to be honest with you, I think the most naive blunder we made was maybe just the time in the shows. Like, I think Edinburgh. I think if you do Edinburgh and you do all your business, say between 12 and 6 p.m., I think you could have a great time.
Yeah, and I think we definitely learned that, didn't we? Like, because when you're a smaller act or newer act, which is like 99.9% people there, that window of 12 till 5 is when people are wandering around going like, what shall we see? Should we see this? Should we see that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's 9 o'clock is like your prime time.
Prime time, yeah. I think that I do honestly. I think the biggest mistake we made was probably time. The time, like, and I think that was, you just couldn't know, you know.
Yeah, totally. But I agree. The further away I've got from it, the more I feel like I got out of it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You definitely gain from it. And I think what you're doing is right. Like, learning how to put on a show, sell a show, marketing a show is just as important as learning how to be funny. Like, there's I think there's very few people who can really make it now who don't know how to do that, who just know how to be funny, and they're people who are just going to get plucked up by the thing. Like, they're and in many ways, there's a lot of luck in that, because, you know, I've done the competition, you've done the competitions. There's not always, I don't think there's always people that stand out that much. I think there's a few acts. Occasionally some people come along and they do seem to stand out, and they do seem to have something a little bit different. But often there's very little in these, you know.
I think one thing the one thing for you and me to think about, if we want to do it, is I was having a chat to an American mate recently, and he was doing like a bunch of Irish shows in between Boston and New York.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he was just like, if you get the right time of the year, you do it around like a feast day or a holiday, you know, you do Easter, you do St. Patrick's Day weekend. He's like, it's a gold mine.
Really? That's something we'll look into that.
Yeah. Because that could be very fun. Right. I think we'll wrap it up. That's been the first episode of Tom Jack Having the Crack for the new year. We'll see you next week, and I'll see you soon, pal.
Take it easy, buddy. Speak to you soon.
Tom and Jack having a crack. Tom and Jack having a crack. Tom and Jack